Hello everyone. Talking a little bit quietly because I'm not home alone this time. But I wanted to, I'm in the editing stage of writing my book, and I'm editing my first draft, so it's like really agonizing. It's like my least favorite thing I've ever done. It reminds me of being in high school, which is not a good thing. So, I've been procrastinating, and that means I've gotten a little bit behind schedule. So today I have to pick up some of the slack that I've created. So I have to plot edit 4 chapters today. So I figured I'm gonna film so that I can motivate myself to do it. Because if I can make a video out of it, then maybe it's worth it. Also, look how cute this cup is. This is chai, by the way. I don't drink coffee, but anyways. See, I'm stalling. Anyway, it'll probably be a time-lapse next clip, so. Here's the manuscript. The pink is, like technical edits, like grammar, punctuation, like word changes and stuff. And yes, it's one-sided because, here, let me show you something. Like, I've got notes on the back, especially for plot edits. Like, hold on, there's one page where it's like full. Give me a second. See? So I chose to have it be one, like not double-sided, so that I could like write all of my notes in the same thing, because it's hard to write edits for plot changes like actually in like just the tiny spaces here, you know? So that's why it's like that. I probably won't do the same thing for the second draft, just because there's probably not going to be as many changes like that. But I just want you guys to know that I love trees and I love the environment, and there's a purpose behind why I did it this way, so you're not like flaming me in the comments. I just finished the first chapter of the day, which is chapter 7, which is actually kind of a fun chapter. So it wasn't too, you know, I like that chapter a lot because it's where a lot of the story kind of starts to get going, and like you're introduced to some characters and it's fun. So it was alright. I just wanted to stop for a second and kind of talk about my editing process a little bit, because that's what I said I would do in these kinds of vlogs. Sorry, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, my editing process. So, because this is a first draft, I'm reading through it a bunch of times to like really get the story in my head, so that I can understand the story, and so that like when I go into my second draft, I know it forwards and backwards, and it's not gonna, so that hopefully it won't take me as long to edit it the next couple times I have to like do a draft and then edit and stuff. So that's why that's happening. So when I finished my first draft, I read through it, no editing, I just read through it like a reader. Obviously it was a little bit hard to do that without wanting to edit, because like obviously it was a first draft, there's things that need to be changed, but I read through it just like not focusing on editing, just reading it from a reader's perspective, so that the story could be fresh in my mind, like front to back, because I'd been writing it for like 3 months, so like the first chapter I hadn't like read or touched since I first started, you know. So because I also write in chronological order. I'm not the type of person who can write scenes out of order. It doesn't make sense in my brain, which if you can do that, that's great, because I think that's like really cool. But like I'm just like, my brain doesn't work like that. Like I have to write it in chronological order, which is a lot of the time is why I get writer's block. Yeah, so I read through it once, and then the first round of edits I did just like technical edits is what I'm calling them, like in my head. But what I mean by that is like spelling errors, or like grammatical errors, or punctuation errors, or things, or like if I want to change around the wording of a sentence, things like that. So like very technical things, nothing to do with like deep story stuff. And then so I've currently read through it twice fully, like all the way through. Only one of those times I was editing. Now I'm on my third read through of it and I'm doing plot edits, and I'm color coding the edits. So technical edits were pink, which I did pick up in the time lapse you saw just before this. I did pick up this a few times because there's always going to be things you miss. So I mean, yeah, but I'm not focusing on that. Like it's just, I'm more like I'm making them if I notice them, but I'm not specifically looking for that, which is why I'm doing so many rounds of edits this time, because I started off trying to do kind of like all the edits I wanted to do at once, but then I was like, I'm not catching things because I'm looking for like 4 types of things at once, and it wasn't thorough, because I would read through it again and I'd be like, I missed like 17 things in this chapter that need to be fixed. So I was like, I should read through it like 4 times, which is annoying, but I mean, like, if I want the story to be good, it's kind of what I have to do because I can't afford an editor right now. I'll definitely get an editor for like my 3rd draft and stuff probably, but you know, not yet. But yeah, so then plot edits are green. So I'm working on that right now. And by plot edits, I mean like fixing plot holes, changing things that like don't make sense, or like now that I've read through it twice, like if there's something within the story, if I notice something that's like contradicting information with something later in the book, because now I have like pretty much the whole thing memorized, plot wise, like I can change that, or I can like make a note to myself, like if I liked the detail better like at the beginning of the story and then like I like changed it later, I'll make a note to myself to change it so that it like matches, because inconsistency is bad, especially in fantasy, because it's like world building stuff. So like if your story doesn't make sense, it's not believable, because it's fantasy, and it's not like believable in the sense that like this would actually happen. Anyways, so yeah, plot edits, things like that. And then my last read through, which starts in how many days? Like a week, and ends on like the end of like the last day of February. I'll be doing character edits. So like really paying attention to my characters and the way they're acting, and making sure that their personalities are consistent throughout the entire story, and making sure that like they have like flaws, or they're like consistent with like how I planned them to be, and making sure they're not all the same, like making sure they have their differences and stuff, and also probably making sure they have equal amounts of page time, like screen time, but for book. Like I don't really know how else to describe that. Obviously my main character, the book is in first person, so it's through the eyes of my main character, so obviously she's gonna have the most page time, but I have a bunch of other like main or supporting character, not a bunch, there's only 6 of them, but like I have other ones who have like a big role in this story, and I want to make sure, even though this is only the first book, that they all kind of get their moments and you can connect with each one of at least those 6 in this story, so that like you want to like continue to read about their story in the last 2 books, because it's going to be a trilogy, as I've said before in my last video. Anyways, yeah, So after this read through, which will end in about a week, I'm going to do character edits, which are going to be blue. So I've got pink, green, and blue, and this paper is going to be, this document is going to be very colorful. Yeah, so that's my little editing process, if you were interested. Yeah, on to the next chapter. Yay. I need a coaster or something for this class. It's like condensating everywhere. Anyways, okay. Second chapter of the day is done. Chapter 8. That one, there wasn't a ton of stuff to edit for the plot. The beginning of the book is a little bit more like technically sound, because like a third of the way into the book I realized that I was like editing as I was writing, and it was slowing me down a lot. So then after like chapter like 11-ish, I stopped doing that, and I would just write, and I would not go back and read anything. I would go back and read like the last chapter I wrote, but just to like remember what I wrote, not to edit it. So I stopped doing that. So the first like 11-ish chapters are way more like fleshed out and like not detailed, but I think, I don't really know how to describe it, but they're a little bit better than the rest of the book, because I was editing them at the same time I was writing them. So okay, I don't really remember what I was saying because my friend called me in the middle of the last clip, so I don't really remember what I was saying. But oh yeah, I remember I was talking about how I had been like editing while I was writing, and then I stopped doing that. The reason I stopped doing that is because it was really, really slowing me down. And people, like writers, talk about the importance of not editing while you write all the time, but before I had finished, well, not really before I had finished the first draft, but before I had started like really writing consistently, I didn't really understand that, because I was like, isn't it faster to like edit while you write, like, because then you won't have to do it as much when you're done. But when I started writing, and by the time I got to like chapter 11-ish, 12-ish, I realized like it doesn't take me that long to write a chapter, but it could take me way less time if I'm not like deleting sentences all the time and like reading through constantly, and then like the next day when I go to write something else, what I'm like going back and rereading like the last 3 chapters I wrote and like editing them. It's like, why am I doing that? And because then also it would like, I would do that, and I would like, I'd write a couple chapters a day because I spend way too much time writing when I'm in the writing stage, because that's the part that's like my favorite part, is like actually typing the story out. So I'd write like 3 chapters in a day, but then the next day I'd like open the document again, and I would be like, okay, I'm going to read through what I wrote yesterday. And then I would do that, and I like wouldn't be able to stop myself from editing it. And then I would do that and finish doing that, and then like get to the page that I'm supposed to like start writing for the day on, and I would already want to close the computer. Like my creative energy would be burnt out already, and like I would just kind of not be able to do that, and I'd kind of have to force myself to write, and then it wouldn't be good, and then I'd be like, well, now I'm gonna just stop, because I was like using up my energy on editing instead of writing, you know? So when I stopped, I stopped doing that, and I was like, I'm gonna write this next one, and then tomorrow when I open up my document, I'm not gonna edit it. I'm not even gonna read through it. So then I did that, and it took me, like, I was able to write like multiple chapters, multiple days in a row, and I was like, oh, so I should probably stop editing as I write. So then I stopped, and I finished the manuscript within like maybe a month and a half after I stopped doing that. Yeah. And it's 33 chapters, and I stopped doing that around chapter 11. So the first 11 chapters took me like entirely too long to write. Well, not too long, because people write at their own paces and stuff, but like for the amount of time that I had and the amount of like stuff that I was doing, as in like the editing while I was writing, it was taking up so much of my time that I could have written it way, way, way faster than I did. But because I was doing all of these things, they were like holding me back from writing it. So, yeah. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. Like, don't edit while you write. And by that, I don't mean it's not okay to, like, after writing a sentence and reading it and being like, this is not how I want this to sound. It's okay to go back and change that sentence. But when I talk about, like, editing while writing, I'm talking more about, like, reading through an entire chapter and, like, editing the chapter. Like, revising your sentences as you write them is fine. But if you're obsessing over it and kind of hyperfixating on making each sentence perfect, probably don't do that. It's probably not a good thing to do, because it's just going to make you feel dumb, even if, like, you're not dumb, but it's going to make you feel like you are if you can't get it perfect. So especially if you're writing a first draft, because writing a first draft can be both so discouraging and so, like, empowering. Just, yeah, give yourself some grace, you know? Don't, like, don't tell yourself that everything has to be perfect the first time, okay? So, yeah, like, if you've, like, rewritten a sentence, like, 10 times and none of it sounds right, just write the sentence and keep writing. Because even if it's not perfect or it sounds the way you want it to sound, like, just move on, because moving on from it and forgetting about it and then coming back with an editing mind once you've finished the draft is gonna probably give you a way better, like, mindset to be able to actually, like, fix the sentence, because you'll be in an editing mindset and you won't have seen the sentence for forever. So, like, you'll read it and be like, okay, this doesn't sound right, and then your brain will be more likely to tell you what would sound right in that scenario. So, yeah. Coming to things with a fresh perspective and a fresh mind after kind of obsessing over it for a little bit and then moving on can actually really help you. So, yeah, I'm not saying to not, like, edit a little bit as you go, but don't like, edit entire paragraphs, don't edit entire chapters, definitely don't edit multiple chapters. As somebody who's done it, it will burn you out quickly, and it'll make you feel like an idiot. It really will. So yeah, even though you're not an idiot. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. On to the next chapter. Okay, I just want to show you something really quick. Give me a second. So, there's that. So yeah, so I just finished the 3rd chapter of the day. It's going good. I just wanted to say that in these time lapses, you can see my mouth moving, And that's because I'm reading it out loud to myself. I'm like whispering it out loud. I'm not like reading it full voice. But the reason I do that is, one, so that I don't reread sentences like 4,000 times, because I can get distracted really easily when I'm reading. And two is so that I can like know if the sentence is flowing, you know? Because like if I ever end up doing like audiobooks for my book, then I need to know that it's gonna flow nicely. And I mean, it needs to flow if it's just getting read by a person too. Like if you're just reading it, it needs to flow, and the easiest way to know if it does is to read it out loud and see if it sounds like you could say it. So that's why I do that. And it helps also it helps my brain kind of comprehend what I'm reading better as well, because I'm reading it out loud. So I'm like, it's really, because I'm focusing on it a lot, and it helps me just to like take in all of the information that I'm reading. So I just wanted to say that. And like, kind of, it's like a little bit of a tip, I guess, because like if you're like me, who like rereads and rereads sentences over and over again and gets distracted constantly, whispering or like mouthing the words out like to yourself can help you not do that. And if you have trouble with reading comprehension, that also helps. So if you're writing, like if you're a writer, which pretty much everybody watching this is probably a writer, and you're the type of person who like when you're editing you struggle to like stay focused or whatever, that I suggest reading it out loud to yourself as you edit, because it really helps. Yeah, so that's my advice. Time up for the last chapter of the day. Okay, I just finished the 4th chapter of the day, aka the last chapter I said I would edit today. So I'm officially 10 chapters through my 3rd read through of my first draft. So there's your progress update on my TROC editing. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to mention. Oh, I know. I want to talk about how discouraging editing can be. So as someone who hasn't always had a ton of confidence in myself, this whole editing process has been a little bit rough, because my story isn't bad, and I don't think it's bad, and my beta readers don't think it's bad. But obviously, since it's a first draft and my first ever finished first draft, it needs work. So the fact that it's not perfect is discouraging to me, because I'm like, well, this is supposed to be like my talent. Why isn't it perfect first try? Which, that's completely unrealistic. Like, duh, that's completely unrealistic. Nobody's ever perfect first try on like literally anything. You know what I mean? So it's not something I should be insecure about or discouraged by. But alas, I am. And that's kind of just human nature. Like, if you're a perfectionist, you want everything you do to be perfect. And I'm not normally a perfectionist, but when it comes to writing, I am. So this whole process of editing and having to read my own work so much has caused a little bit of a struggle with kind of self, like being very degrading towards myself, a little bit of like self-hatred and being like, I literally hate what I'm reading right now. And it's not because I think the story's bad, because I don't think so, because I'm actually very excited about this story. And it's also not because I think that I am not a good writer. It's just like reading it over and over again and like having to like pay attention to everything that's wrong with it makes it a little bit difficult for me at this point in editing and stuff to see everything that's right with it. So I have frequently had to like remind myself that like, no, the story concept is good, my writing is good, but there's always going to be things that I need to change, and that's normal. And I'm telling you this because if you're a writer and you're in the editing stage, especially editing your first draft, you're probably going to experience this. And I want you to know that it's normal. And I also want you to know that nothing that your brain is convincing you of, like if you've convinced yourself like that you're not talented, that you're not a good writer, that you can't write, that there's no point because your draft isn't perfect, or that there's no point in finishing the story because there's so much to work on and it's overwhelming. None of that is true. Even if you've completely convinced yourself of it, it's not true. And I can guarantee you that the only reason you think that is because you're the one who wrote it. Okay? Anybody else who would read your work probably would think it's great, especially for a first draft, if that's what you're writing, or even like just any like unpublished book, you know, like anybody who's not a writer is going to think that a writer's writing is good, no matter what stage they're in. Obviously, they can probably notice that it's not perfect, just like you can, but they're not going to like look down on you because of it. So I think something us writers need to realize is that like we have this talent, and just because we have a talent for it doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect first try, because everything comes with practice and everything improves with practice. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a motivation to you if that's something you've been, you know, wrestling with recently, like not feeling like you're good enough or anything, or feeling discouraged. Just know that there's nothing that you should feel discouraged about, because, you know, your book's not done. You're editing it and it's just not done yet, and you don't need to feel bad about your writing because it's simply not done yet. So critiquing yourself on things that aren't necessary is just, you know, it's just harmful to yourself and your mindset, and it's just going to make you not want to write. Recognizing good critique is good. Like recognizing that, yeah, there's things I need to change, but that doesn't mean that I'm inherently a bad writer, you know, because they can both exist. Like you can have like a lot of work to do on your story, but that doesn't make you a bad writer, because they don't mean the same thing. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, that was it for this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't. But yeah, anyways, do all the things that you do when you like a YouTube video. Subscribe, comment something. Yeah, comment video ideas. That's like kind of what I'm gonna probably ask you to comment every video. So just, you know, do that. And yeah, I have decided I'm gonna try and post at least every other Friday. I hope. I want to eventually make it every Friday, but just because right now I don't necessarily have all of the resources to make that happen, because the way that I have to edit videos and stuff, it takes a way longer time. So I'm gonna go for every other Friday is my hope. So yeah, expect that. Yeah, that's all for today's video. I'll see you in the next one.